Okay, I know that talking about the weather seems super boring, maybe even pointless. This is something I hear a lot, actually, from native English speakers and my students. But what if it isn't actually boring? What if it isn't pointless? Instead, what if talking about the weather is essential to experiencing more joy in your daily life and even feeling more connected to other people? If that sounds totally ridiculous right now, I absolutely get it. But in the next few minutes, I want to try to change your mind. I want you to understand exactly why you should talk about the weather in English and why it's particularly great for English small talk. And then after we discuss that, I want to help you understand exactly how to do it right with some common phrases that you'll hear in daily English conversations, including some phrases that are sometimes confusing because the words they use aren't exactly the real meaning of what they're trying to say. So, we're going to talk about what the real meaning is and how to best respond. Now, to really understand why you should talk about the weather in English conversations, there's another question that we need to answer first. Why should you even bother with small talk in English? So many of my students ask me this question, and it's hard to understand the point of small talk when small talk is usually about these really simple, polite, but unimportant topics. All of that may be true, but that doesn't mean the actual process, the actual conversations in small talk aren't important. In fact, this is so essential to really understanding English speaking culture. The key here is that the topic of a small talk conversation isn't the important part. The interaction, the exchange, the conversation is. When you're using English in your daily life or at work, small talk often has a purpose. It helps people to feel comfortable with each other. It's a really simple way that we show friendliness, respect, and openness in English conversations. It's a way to move from, I don't really know you, to, we can share this small, happy moment together. And this whole idea of the importance of small talk, this isn't just my opinion. There's research behind all of this. And I want to share three key points with you. The first one is small talk can actually lift your mood or make you feel happier. Researchers have studied what happens when strangers chat with each other in daily life. They found that after a quick conversation, we usually walk away feeling a little bit happier and more connected. And if you're wondering why, the answer is because even a short interaction with someone we don't know, it can help us feel seen in the moment. It can remind us that we're part of a community. We're not isolated from it. The second reason small talk is so important is it can increase your sense of belonging. In one famous study, researchers looked at a very normal everyday habit, buying coffee. In this research study, they split people into two groups, and the first group was asked to be really friendly with the barista, to smile, make eye contact, and even have a brief chat. The second group was told to be purely efficient. Just pay, get the coffee, and leave. The result of this study was that the people who had those tiny, friendly exchanges felt significantly more positive and connected afterward. That other group focused on efficiency, they saved time, but the small talk built a moment of happiness. And now, the third reason why small talk is so important is it helps us build what researchers call weak ties. These weak ties are the casual connections that you have in your daily life. These aren't your super close friends or family. These are people like neighbors you don't know very well, coworkers that you don't know well, shopkeepers that you see regularly, or people that you always see when you go to the gym. And studies show that on the days when you interact with more of these really casual connections, people feel happier and less lonely. So, small talk isn't really about the topic. It's about the moment of human connection, these tiny moments that help us feel happier, more included, and more connected to the world around us. Okay, super quick before we talk all about why the weather is such a fantastic topic for small talk, I want to say this. If you're a woman learning English and things like this, things like small talk or basic everyday conversations still feel super hard, even when you know the right words, this is exactly why I created the Confident Women community. It's a women only speaking practice community where you have real English conversations and get support along the way. The goal is to make sure that when you're learning new phrases, you actually start to use them in your conversations and you feel confident, you feel comfortable doing so. So, if this sounds like something you've been looking for, I'll leave a link where you can learn more about the Confident Women community down below. Okay, now we can talk about the big question. Why should you talk about the weather? And I don't mean giving the forecast or reporting what is happening outside. Small talk about the weather is usually about your feeling or your reaction to what is happening. Like maybe you're super tired of the heat. Maybe you're grateful for the rain. Maybe you're surprised by an unexpectedly beautiful sunny afternoon. There are a few key reasons that make the weather such a useful topic of conversation. The first one is it's safe. It's not too complicated or too personal. You don't need to talk about worries that you're experiencing or deadlines or something difficult happening in your life. It's just the weather, nothing too personal. The second reason it's great is it's shared. If you're at a grocery store, everyone around you is experiencing the same weather. You already have something in common with all those strangers. And if you're on a Zoom call with people in different countries, you may not have the same weather, obviously, but you all have weather. You all have weather events that can be unexpected and wild and everyone can talk about it. And the third reason is it can lead to a real story. Again, small talk isn't about the topic, it's about the connections that we create. So, when you're talking about what's happening outside and how you feel about it, you might talk about the perfect weather you had on Saturday and the picnic that you had with friends that you didn't plan. It just happened because everyone was so ready to go out and enjoy the day. Or maybe you have a story about the time that several strangers waited inside a grocery store during an absolute downpour. And then while you're all watching this crazy weather storm, someone says, well, it's a good day for a swim. And everyone laughed. A simple moment of experiencing laughter with other people. Or maybe it's the shared experience of a very difficult heat wave and how everyone got through it. So, yes, the topic of the weather is super simple and it may seem unimportant at the beginning, but is it boring? Not when real human stories are involved. So, with that in mind, let's look at some common phrases that you'll hear in real conversations about the weather. I want to focus specifically on phrases that might be confusing because the words, yes, are simple, but the meaning may not be so obvious. And with each one, I'll also share how to best respond. So, the first set of phrases that we're going to look at are the questions that want just a super quick reaction. For example, at the grocery store or when you see your neighbor outside, you might hear someone say, cold enough for you? Or hot enough for you? Crazy weather we're having, huh? Or are you getting any of this rain over there? All of these are real questions. They expect a response, but they're definitely not looking for a full weather report. Instead, these questions are invitations to a super quick back and forth. In every case, the best response is usually short. You agree, you react, and maybe ask a small question back. For example, if someone says, is it cold enough for you? You could say, oh my gosh, seriously, it's so cold right now, I can't feel my face. Or simply, I know I'm not at all ready for this winter weather. In each of those responses, we agree with the statement that yes, it's super cold. We share our reaction or feeling. And again, if you want to, you could ask a question back. Now, let's take a look at another example. When someone says to you, "Are you getting any of this rain over there?" When someone asks this question, what they're really asking is, "Are you getting this rain too?" It's common in telephone and online meetings when there's some distance between you and the person you're speaking to. In small talk conversations, it's also a quick, friendly way to connect across that distance. And again, you don't need a long answer. The goal is just to say what's happening where you are and add that small reaction, that small feeling. And of course, you can ask about their weather if you want to keep that conversation going. So here's what that might sound like. If it is indeed raining where you are as well, you could say, "Oh my gosh, yes, it's been pouring all morning. Is it bad where you are?" Now, when answering questions like this, the key to getting it right is don't answer with only a flat yes or no. And we don't want to give a long explanation either. The key is to give that small reaction. That's what keeps the conversation feeling natural. Now, in a moment, I want to move on to looking at how we use complaints because let's be honest, we all love to complain about the weather. I want to talk about the example with that huh at the end. Crazy weather we're having, huh? That phrase or sound is common when someone wants to say, "What was that? I didn't understand you." As in, "Huh? What was that?" But here in this phrase, it's doing something a bit different. Instead, it's a sound that we use as a casual invitation for agreement. It's really similar to saying, "Crazy weather we're having, right?" Or "Crazy weather we're having, isn't it?" In this case, when someone says that, the expected response is a simple agreement like, "Yeah, it really is." Or, "I know, it's been so strange." Or, "Right? I wasn't expecting this at all." All right, now let's move on to complaints and their role in small talk. I'm super curious where you live. Is complaining about the weather a common topic of conversation? If it is, I want you to take a quick moment to tell me a common example in the comments. As for conversations in English, you might hear things like, "This humidity is brutal, isn't it?" Or, "I'm so over this rain. I can't take this heat anymore." There are a few keywords that I want to focus on here. First is that word brutal. This means that something is really uncomfortable or difficult to deal with. And although brutal is a strong word, a strong negative word, we use it in casual conversation to talk about weather that is extreme, like horrible heat waves. And then that next example, "I'm so over." English speakers love to use this to express that they are really tired of something. It says, "I've had enough. I'm done." So when someone says, "I'm so over this rain," it suggests that there's been days of endless rain and you're totally done with it. And then that last phrase, starting with "I can't take." This means that something is too difficult, too uncomfortable, or too much. You can't do it anymore. You can't live with this thing anymore. Now, each of these phrases sound super negative, and they are, but in small talk, they're also friendly invitations. The person isn't asking you to solve a problem. Obviously, we can't solve the weather, but instead, they're inviting you to join in on a feeling, on an experience that they're having. What they really mean when they share these comments is, "We're in this together, right?" So, in those moments, your response is simply to agree and add a small reaction of your own. For example, if someone says, "This heat has been brutal," you might say, "Oh, tell me about it. I'm so over it." Or, "Same here. I'm ready for cooler weather." Or, "I know. I feel like I'm melting." Again, the key is you don't need a long answer. You just need to show that you understand that feeling that someone is trying to express. Now, for this third category, I actually want to go back to a story that I shared earlier. It's a story that really happened to me. Last year, I was standing in a grocery store with 13 total strangers, watching a torrential rainfall, and then suddenly laughing when someone said, huh, looks like a perfect day for a swim at the beach. This kind of joke that means the opposite is such a common way to talk about the weather in small talk. Another example might be watching an absolute rainstorm and someone saying, lovely day for a swim. Or someone saying, perfect picnic weather when the wind is terrible. Or someone simply saying, lovely when the weather is awful. The goal here isn't to be hilarious or to be some kind of comedian. It's just to create a small moment where you share a smile or a tiny laugh about something that is so obviously not true. And in these situations, a laugh is kind of all you need. You don't need a clever comeback. You don't even really need to respond. It's just about that shared moment of smiling or laughing. If you do want to respond, you could say, I know, right? Or exactly, just the perfect day for a swim. And in doing so, you're just showing agreement with their obvious joke. In each case, the reality of this conversation is yeah, the weather may be awful, but we can share these small moments together and just have a little laugh. And that's exactly the point. You're not trying to say something brilliant or share some really personal story. You're just noticing a shared moment together, human to human, and responding together to that feeling that you're experiencing in the moment. So now I'm really curious. At the start of today, I challenged the idea that talking about the weather is boring or pointless. And I suggested that not only is it a great topic for small talk conversations, it can also bring more joy, more connection to your life. And I want to know what you think. Can you think of moments when you shared a little bit of laughter or discovered some interesting story about someone because you started talking about the weather? I want you to tell me what you think in the comments below. I'd really love to know. And this week, if you hop on a Zoom call or see your neighbor out for a walk, I want you to pay attention to the small talk that comes up. Do you notice how often the weather is the topic of the conversation? Because it's easy, it's friendly, and it's open to everyone to participate. You now also have common phrases that you can use to start or respond to these invitations to connect. I encourage you to take one of these phrases today and make one simple comment in a conversation this week. Not because the weather is fascinating, but because it gives you an easy way to begin a conversation. And sometimes that small beginning is exactly what helps a conversation feel smooth, natural, and connected. Now, as always, if you found this lesson helpful, don't forget to subscribe or follow wherever you're watching or listening from today. Thank you so much for joining me, and I look forward to next time.